myself.
Hello and welcome to our live stream and our third workshop. We have an amazing evening planned for you today. But before we get started, we have Amanda and Saverio. They're going to do an intro, and enough from me. Let's hear from them.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
So we're here in this unusual and new format for us. It's tough times. We were kind of forced to explore this new avenue, but we are very excited to try and bring it to the cloud, what we always do in person.
Yes, it's kind of weird because we're so used of going there, of seeing everyone, looking at you in the eyes, but it's also been an unusual day for us. We also worked from home. I don't know how your days have been from where you are watching us. I know there's people who are not only from London watching us today. So make sure to share with us how your day has been.
Absolutely. And well, it helped a lot that it was a sunny day, so we could work with a lot of sun, kind of restore our energies, not thinking too much of what was going around. I hope that you all were safe. Please take all the precautionary measures, wash your hands, limit your interaction in like your physical interaction. We got the internet for that, so let's stay in touch with that. Check our Slack channel. Let's interact. Let's plan even more events like this one in the future. We have a few things that we could do together. We are planning to expand over our GCP certification program. We are planning to do some quick lab event. And of course, we are going to follow through with this Angular course with Eddie.
Definitely. We have postponed some of our events, but as Sav said, we're going to explore more events online. So if you'd like to speak at GDG Cloud, that's the place to be.
I'm still trying to figure out how can I send food to each one of you that are following us. That is going to take some time. Hopefully I can get something sorted. I would love to share food with you, especially now that it's kind of tricky to stock your fridge. As we saw yesterday, it wasn't easy. It's not only in the supermarkets, but even then we're back, okay, let's order something, nothing. Like all the supermarkets, I won't make names so that no one sues us, but everyone was like full until 2 weeks in the future. Or there was another one that I tried to access in there, and it was like, you are in the queue. You've got to wait 10 minutes just to check the website. So very painful.
That's so amazing. There's someone from Nigeria watching us here. Bless you. Thank you for coming here.
Hello.
Hello.
So with that, we're going to leave you with Angular, with Andrew and Eddie. They're the masters here. Thank you very much.
Enjoy the evening.
Thank you so much, Amanda and Sav. It was awesome to have you on a live stream, and I look forward to doing lots more live streams on this channel and mine with you. So let's get our ideas writing down, and I can't wait to do that. Thank you very much for introing the workshop and for this awesome collaboration. Shall we get started with some coding? So Andrew, what are we doing today?
I thought, what are you doing today? I think you're going to take us through how to set up a new Angular project. You're going to show us how to set up live code sharing so we can work on a project together.
Oh yeah, we need to do that as well. I completely forgot.
Absolutely. And then we'll be looking at how to set some forms up. So we'll be listing some data, searching the data using a form. And then towards the end, we will set up a contact page with another form and put some validation on.
So, are you excited? Everyone watching, are you excited? I hope you've done your homework. I hope you've got your questions ready. Any questions, just fire it in the chat and we'll answer as soon as we can. It isn't our first time doing a full workshop online, so it's going to be quite interesting. It's not our first live stream, but it's definitely our full our workshop online. So, we're going to start right from the beginning. We're going to recap the first two workshops really quickly, and I'll push up the code as we go along so you can see that. And like Andrew said, we will then go into some new stuff. So if you haven't had dinner yet, grab some food, sit down in front of the screen, because this will be the recap part for the next kind of 20 minutes. And then we're going to get into the more challenging and interesting stuff that we haven't covered yet. So let's get started. So I'm going to start right at the beginning. So if I bring up Angular
share a link
CLI
to this. So the first thing you want to do is clone our project, right?
Yes, that is true. So Andrew is right. He has pushed up the previous part. So we're going to do a part 3. So I'm going to clone this project. So this is the, Andrew, are you sharing links?
Yeah, I'm just grabbing the link now.
I beat you to it. There you go. So there's the link for the project. And I want to click on clone, and it's best to clone over SSH rather than HTTPS. So if it says it this way round, make sure you click use SSH. I've always found that easier. You will have to set up some keys. Andrew does have a video on his YouTube channel, I think, on how to do that. And then I'm going to go to the Code Mortals directory on the CLI. So on Mac, it's called Terminal. On Linux, it's called Terminal. And on Windows, I think it's called Terminal Console. It's kind of got a similar sort of name, but it'll look like this. Colors might be a bit different, but definitely be similar. And so I'm in the folder that I want to clone the repo to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this. As I said, I've copied this link over SSH. I'm just going to do a git clone and paste it in. And you can specify an extra parameter if you want to give it a different name. Otherwise, it will use the name of the repo, which is this one. So I'm going to hit enter because I'm happy with that name. Oh, apparently it already exists. So apparently I've cloned it already. So what I will do is I'll delete it so you can see it clone. I do have it already, but I only have part 1. I think everything I have is committed. So what I'm going to do, ignore that. Let me just delete that one and let me start from the beginning. So now if I list the directory with ls minus l, you can see that's now gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go git clone. And you don't have to do this. This is if you want to start with our code or use our code. You can grab parts of it off GitHub. This is my password for my SSH key. You might not have that. If I type my password right, it would help. And then it'll clone the project. And then now I have the directory which is the name of the repo that I just cloned. So now I can navigate into that. Again, you might not have this, and that's fine if you're using your own project, but people who want to follow along more closely, you can clone the project and then follow along, and we'll push up as we go along. So there's part 1, part 2. We're going to start part 3 for today. So
if you don't have Git installed, you can clone the repository by literally taking a zip file and opening up that zip file as well if you don't have Git installed.
That is, Andrew, that is very true. So there is download zip if you need to do that. I highly recommend using Git if you have it. Everyone's saying hello in the chat. Awesome. If you are here, don't forget to write hello in the chat. It'd be really great to see who we've got. We've got 20 people, so give us a shout out and say hey in the chat. So who wants to tell us what to do next? I'm going to try and rush through this quite quickly so we can get on to the exciting things. But we did install Angular CLI to create the project on the first workshop. And to install it, you would use this command, which I'm not going to use because I've already got it installed, but I am going to use the next one. So, actually, I can put these side by side.
On your terminal, can you make your terminal a bit bigger? There's a few requests
for the
terminal size to be bigger.
How's that? Hopefully that's better. Okay, so I'll just go to the top, and I've got part 1 and part 2 in this folder. Everyone's saying hey in the chat. It's awesome to have you here. Thanks everyone for joining. So, and we've got 8 thumbs up. Thank you everyone for giving us a thumbs up as well. Really appreciate it. Font size bigger. Still bigger? Oh, that's gone quite big now. How's that? I can make that a bit bigger maybe still. Hopefully that's a bit better. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do ng new, I'll call it part 3, or they've been with words, part 3 like that. Ng new, and part 3 is the name of the app. So the Angular CLI will create this folder and also create an Angular project in the folder. So just hit enter. And I would like to add routing because we do want different pages. And I want SCSS. And it's going to create it. If you didn't add routing, you can add it manually later on. It's not the end of the world. It's just a bit more work. And if you've chosen CSS, that's also fine. It's just how you want to write your styles. It's, again, no big deal. You choose the one that you want, and you can always change it later. Okay, let me remove this Slack thing out of the way. It's just doing its thing. And then once it's done, oh, Andrew's already done a runner. I was going to pass over to him. He's done a runner already. Oh, glad this font size is much better. Thanks for confirming that in the chat. How's your projects coming along? I hope you did your homework. Who did their homework? Come on, seriously. Let me lift this slightly above Andrew's head for a moment, just so you can see it. Oh no, I don't want that. There we go. It's just running through the usual output. So we would have created the project. It would have created the directory with the project in there, and then we'll start it up. It's done. So if I list the folders, you can see part 3 is there. If I navigate into part 3, most of you will recognize these files, and when I do an npm start, you will recognize the output. And at the end of the start, oh, it's someone's first time. Okay, awesome. So I'm glad we're going through this. We're going to go through it quite quickly. So if you have any questions, put it in the chat. But we are starting from scratch. We want to recap for 20 minutes and then we will dive into the new stuff. So now it says open your browser on HTTP localhost 4200. So if I just grab that and open this over there. This is what Angular gives you out of the box. It gives you this code and this page, but this is running on our machine locally. So yay, we have our first Angular, or maybe third if you've done it each time we've done a workshop. You have an Angular app. So Andrew, what's next? Shall we'll change this HTML page and make it our own code? Should I bring you in as well so you can make some changes?
Yeah, if you add me to the project, that would be good. So
let's add Andrew
together.
So if I do code dot, that will open VS Code in the directory that we're in as a project. So if I hit enter, there we go, part 3, and these are the files I have there. So if I open package.json, you will see it's called part 3. So it is the folder, and you can see below it is the directory GDG Angular course part 3. So we've got that, and that works. So now I'm just going to bring in Andrew so he can actually make some changes. So let me have a look. I'm going to remind myself, live share. Andrew is here. Let's invite by email. So Andrew should get an invite and he can actually make some changes to this code. Oh, it's popped up my email. Let me do that now. Send that to you. Okay, hopefully Andrew, you're going to get that email. And while Andrew's doing that, what we're going to do is go back to the files and we're going to open source, and I'm going to open app, and then you've got app component HTML, app component SCSS, and app component spec, and app component TS. So if I open the HTML file, this is all the HTML that we just saw in the browser. Everyone still following along? Give me a thumbs up in the chat and let me know if you're still following along. So I want to delete that, and I want to write hello GDG Cloud, and I want to hit save. So now you'll see in the browser, I haven't hit refresh, my hands were here, and it's automatically loaded the text. It'll automatically reload. So let me see if I can show you again. So I bring this over here, I've made it a bit smaller, and I want to type something here. I'm just going to put London at the end. And I want to hit save. I'm not going to switch windows to the browser, and you'll see it automatically reloads. So every time you make a change and save, it'll automatically reload in the browser. Thanks for all the thumbs up, that's good. So next, so we've got our own custom stuff here. So what did we do next, Andrew, in part 1?
Well, we did show a few things like an ngIf, but do we want to cover that again, or do we want to get straight into material and move a little bit quicker? Just conscious of time a little bit, because we could spend a long time talking through everything.
Sure, let's bring in material, and we can do maybe an ngIf on that. So we can still cover it, but we won't cover it in such small bite sizes. So another thing you can do with Angular is if I open a new tab and do Angular material, there is some awesome components, and we are going to show you how to make your own components, because I know Andrew's a huge fan of making your own custom components. We are going to show you how to do that, but you can also get components that work out of the box. You can pick a form field. If I go to examples, you get these kind of nice fields and text areas and all sorts of stuff with icons, all the rest out of the box. Another nice one to show is toolbar. You can get these toolbars and you can put icons on the side. So we will quickly bring that in now so you can see. And I like the buttons. You've got these buttons, and we go to examples. You can see all these different types of buttons that you can use. It just work out the box, really straightforward. I don't want to say easy because it's easy when you know how, but when you don't know how, it's really hard. And then you can do things with like dialogues, like so many things. Anyway, let's bring it in. So if I go click on the icon, go back to the beginning. Andrew, I hope you're monitoring the chat, and if I miss anything, let me know. I'm going to say get started. I can let me put some links into some of these as well. So if I grab that link and I put that link in here, and then I put also this link as well, if you need it too, in there as well. So all you have to do is just one command to bring that in. To bring it in, not to use it. I'm going to show you that in a second. So if I copy this and I go back to the terminal, and it's still running, but I need to stop it because this is bringing in an npm dependency. And I'm going to run that command, ng add Angular material, and hit enter. Oh, let me bring it above Andrew's head. He's got a big head with that hat on as well. Bring it up here. Let it work its magic. Everyone still following along? Okay, cool. And it will choose you which theme to use. You can create your own custom theme, or you can pick one and you can customize it later. So I want to pick one. What did I pick yesterday, Andrew? I think I picked, let's just pick purple and amber. I think that's pretty good color. Hit enter. If you want gestures, again, you can remove it or add it later if you need to. I'm just going to take the default, which is yes. Browser animations, yes, because browser animations, they look really good. We're not going to show that today. We might do if we get time, if not in the future. But I hit yes just so it adds it. Okay. All looking good, hopefully. Right, so now if I run npm start again, and I hit back to our project, oh, not that one. Don't know why that one's come up. Must be running in another terminal. Let me close that. No corona. That was a cough. I had like a frog in my throat.
Of course.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking about it.
I won't say what I'm going to say I won't mention what you told me just before we started this stream.
Said I wasn't feeling well. Doesn't mean I've got it. Oh, the pressure of coding live. Okay, let's keep going. So if I go back to this, you'll see what we had before, but nothing's changed. Everything is the same. If I go
There is a subtle difference.
Oh, yes.
Can you
I
spot
always
the subtle
forget
difference?
this. Andrew's right. We do have, the font has changed. So we have picked up the font. And if I put in a button, click me. Again, it's just a normal HTML button. So, Andrew, do you want to go drive next? You're in, right? Let me click follow you, and then let's follow what you're up to.
I can do a bit for you. So we want to style this button and give it the material look and feel, do we?
Let's do it.
Okay,
Who wants
cool.
to do that? Write yes in the chat. Andrew, do it anyway.
Or if you want any other component, go have a look on the material website while we're doing this. Pick a component, and we can set one of those up. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that, should I? Because they'll pick the most complicated.
They'll pick the hardest one, and we haven't got a lot of time, or we've got time, but I want to get people doing their own coding.
So the first thing we have to do to get a button working is we need to import that module. The documentation will show you this. So if any in the other browser while I'm doing this wants to just open the docs and just point out where you find how to do this, we need to add the map button module is the one I'm going to add, which requires us to do an import for mat button module. And that comes from the
I was just going to say, so I've brought this up on the right. You find the component you want, you go to API, and it tells you what you need to import, and you always add it to the app.module. Unless you break things down into sub-modules, but we'll worry about that later on. So for the moment, always add it into app module. Like Andrew's done, you have the import at the top, and then you must also bring it in as an import down here in the imports array.
And that will have made no difference. So if I save that, nothing will have yet changed. All buttons still look the same. However, if I go to the HTML now...
Oh, before you go there, let me show the example. So if I go to example, and you click on here, you can see the code, and Andrew's going to show you this part. Sorry, Andrew, carry on.
Yeah, so we just add map button to start with, and that will put the initial styling of a button on the page. You can see it still looks quite basic. There are other options, as the examples say. Raised is probably the main one you end up using if you're using material. And you can also color that. So I can say color, and then there's 3 colors you can choose from. You have primary, accent, and warning colors. So if I just do the primary one and save that, we should have our button changed to a big purple button on the page. Cool. I'm just going to pop an H1 tag around our header as well, just to shift that button down on the page. Okay. Right. There we go. So we have a click me button. It doesn't really do much at the moment. It's just a button. Perhaps we could introduce that ngIf so that when we click this button, some content could be shown and hidden. So if I just drop a p tag below, and inside here we just use.
So I just made that a lot bigger now, just to hopefully everyone can see. People were saying they couldn't see, so I've just made that bigger.
Okay, so I'm going to look for a variable called show content, and depending on that, we will have some secret message can appear. Okay. Now to start with, show content doesn't exist. We need that variable available where in our app component. So the 3 files here, the HTML, the SCSS, and the TS file all make up our component. In the TS file, what we need to do is add this show content. So we can say public show content, and we can just set that to be false for now. So by making that false, if I hit save, the button will still be there. You won't see yet, however, any secret message appearing on the page. It's invisible right now. What we need to do then is make it that when we click the button, something's going to happen. So if we go, and we want to change this false, so I just do this quickly first. So we want to change this false to be true. If I do true and hit save, the secret message should now appear. But it's a secret message, we don't want it there all the time. So let's make it false, and we'll add a function in here. So we can just say public toggle message. Yeah, all my shift key is stuck, I think, and nothing's going to come back. So we return void. This is TypeScript here, wanting to tell us what the return type is. So there's no return type going to be used. And we're going to just say this show content equals the opposite of what it's currently on. So this show content, using the exclamation mark at the start there to just swap between true and false every time we call this function. Obviously, the HTML isn't calling it. We haven't told it to call it. So there are what we call click events. So the click event is with round brackets, click, and then the name of that function we created, which was toggle message. So just a very quick recap. We've added a P with an ngIf and a variable called show content. So this P will only be shown if show content resolves to a true value. In the component TS file, we have created that show content with a value of false. And we've also added a function that will swap the value of that between true and false every time it gets called. And in the HTML, on the button, we've added a click handle, hopefully. The show message show appear.
I think, okay, good. There will seem to be an issue with sending data. It's all come back again. I think my internet went up and down for a second. Sorry. If you click me, yep, so it toggles either way. So you've got a raised button, you've got the animation that comes from material, you've got the purple because we said it was the primary color, and each time we click, we've got an ngIf as well. So hopefully that makes sense for people. Any questions, do write it in the chat.
Okay. Obviously, whilst Eddie keeps an eye on the chat, I'll just move forward slowly. By all means, we can go back. But what the next step from here, as we did before, was to create our own component. So let's imagine now this particular feature we want.
Yep, let me show how that's done. So again, I usually stop the application, but we could probably keep it running because it's not an npm dependency. It is going to be within the code, the source code of the project. So what we can do is do like we did before, ng, and we can say generate.
I want to say secret messages, but It could be an alert. It could be whatever you want. You pick a name.
Is this going to be for toggle buttons? So we just say toggle button,
Yeah, go for it.
like so.
Perhaps with a hyphen in there.
You want a hyphen? You like your hyphens? Okay.
Well, because whatever you call this is going to be how we call it on the page, right?
True.
So normally we would probably want to prefix this with something that says this is one of our own components as well. So you might prefix it with a CM for code mortals or something. But we're not doing that right now. So toggle button will do.
Okay, so this will generate a component for us and add it to the project, but won't include it on the page. So if I hit enter, and it's now created it. If I go back to the code, and we're still following Andrew, I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're following me, but if you stay on your code, you can see a new folder got created there.
So
yeah, a toggle button appeared.
Nice.
And inside there, it will have created 4 files. We're not looking at the spec file at the moment, though. Spec is for creating tests. But the 3 files we're interested in are the TS file, which references the HTML and the SCSS to go with it. The main important part is the selector. So you'll see a selector up here called app toggle button. And that is how we will call this.
Sorry, we're not following component. You, Andrew. 1 second. Why is it stopped? There we go. No, start again.
Okay, so yeah, so inside that folder, there will be a toggle button component TS, which references the HTML and the SCSS that's connected to it. And importantly, there's a selector up here. And that selector is how we will call this component from any other part of our application. Right now, the HTML is largely empty. It just says toggle button works. So let's try just dropping that straight onto our app component HTML. I can do that by just saying app -toggle -button. And if I hit save, you should see appear toggle button works. So the component is available. We can use that. I could have a couple of copies of that on the page. Let's put it on 3 times, let's say. You can see toggle button works appears 3 times. But we want it to be our secret message. So I'm just going to cut out our 2 lines up above and go to the toggle button component HTML and replace that with our code. Now it's giving me a squiggly line under the toggle message and show content. That's because I haven't yet moved the code for those that function and that variable over. So we'll do the same. We'll go to the app component TS file, and I will just cut the show content and the toggle message out and drop that into our component. I'm just going to put the variable at the top. And if I hit save, I'll just check that the squiggly lines have disappeared from there. So if I hit save on both those files now, and on the app component, there's a few files to hit save on. I'll just save everything. You can see click me has appeared 3 times on the page. At the moment, they're sitting side by side. What we can do is in the toggle button SCSS file, you can use something called :host, and this will allow you to, for that wrapper component, so that app toggle button tag, it allows us to attach some CSS straight onto that. And we can just say display block on that, and that should shift, if I spell display correctly, that should shift the click me to new lines each one. Perfect. And what you will also notice, if Eddie wants to click one of those now, is that the secret message only attached to that component is the one that's showing.
So each component is encapsulated, so the variable doesn't filter out to the other variables. So when this one thinks it's closed, it thinks it is closed, and when this one thinks it's open, only itself thinks it's open. So Andrew, what happens if we want to pass in a secret message?
Absolutely. I don't know what messages we want to send to each other, but let's just say, Eddie, you need to do more work.
That's pretty standard. I hope everyone watching is following along. Any questions? Don't forget to ask in the chat. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It does support us. I put a comment in the chat. But it's gone very quiet in the chat, so hopefully everyone is still there. And everyone is still following along, but you're probably working really hard on your projects. Don't worry. There'll be time once you've demoed this for you to go and do it, and we will push this up. You can either start from where we are, or you can continue with your own projects, which would be great. And you can let us know if you have any questions.
Okay, so I've put 3 messages in there. If I save that file at the moment, nothing is going to change, apart from it refreshed your page and it hit stuff. So you can still see secret message in there. So how can we hook into the message we've sent? Well, within our component, our HTML component, there's a special tag we can use. So we take where the secret message is here and we delete the secret message text. And instead we use something called ng-content. And that is a special tag within Angular that only works inside components and says anything you wrote inside the tag will be presented here. So if I hit save on that one now, hopefully I've saved all the files that need to be saved. Eddie can have a look and click a few buttons and see what the secret messages say.
I'm just going to close some of the files that aren't needed anymore. But yes, so now if we click, Eddie needs to do more work. Andrew, you just stream online more. It's so true. This is why we work well together, right? I facilitate the streams, you facilitate the more work. Everyone learning with us needs to show us their homework. Yes, we want to see your homework. Hope you pushed it up to GitHub. If you have, share a link in the chat. Claudia, I know you've done loads of work. You've been geeking out all week. Please share a link to your project in the chat and let's all have a look.
Yeah.
Okay.
One more thing we could quickly show as well is what if we actually wanted one of those to be open by default? Perhaps Eddie can show us this one. I think it's your turn, as the first message says, to do a bit more code.
Yeah, I wasn't paying any attention, so let me try and recap what we've got. Wow, sitting up, hats on properly. So we know it's not going to be within the component right yet. So let's start at the kind of the top level. So what I would think we need is we'd want to pass in a parameter. So not in the content of the button, but actually as a parameter. So if I go to the component and I want to, so we've got a parameter here, show content, but that's only within the component. It's not going to accept any data from outside the component. So what I can do is I can show, what can I call it? I want to have it public, and I'm going to say show. Is that a good enough one? Is show, has show, is show, is shown. Aha. Is shown. And then I can say...
How about not even doing that?
Go on.
Because you already have something called show content here.
That is true, yes.
Make use of that.
Andrew is thinking ahead. So what we can do to make this available outside the component as a property, we can go at input, open close, and that is an annotation that Angular has. And then, oh, we've already got it up there, perfect. And it's an annotation that makes it available outside the component. And it might sound scary. Hold on, I'm going to show you how to use it. It's not that scary and it's really useful. I think if you come from React, it uses these a lot. It calls them props. Next week, we will show you how you can send more complex objects and share data between components with services. But that's next week. So now if I save that, again, nothing is going to change on this right-hand side. It all still works the same as it did. So now if I go to this HTML and I put in here, what do we call it? I've forgotten already.
So there's an attribute called show content.
Show content, and it auto completes for us. And then I hit enter, and I want to say it defaults to false. So on this first one, if I say true, it will be open by default, whereas the other two will be closed by default because it defaults to false. And let me explain what this means. So this is an attribute, and then on the right hand side is the value. The reason why we put these square brackets on, it means treat whatever's on the right hand side like JSON, so not like HTML, because if it was treated like HTML, it would always be a string, but we actually want it as a Boolean. So now if I hit save, the first one should be open, and the other two shouldn't. But they should all still work the same way. And so if I come over to here again and just save the file, which has got no changes, it will reload on the right hand side, and you will see the first one is still open. And I could copy and paste that and put them on all of them if I wanted, and maybe make the first one false. It would default to false, but if I wanted to be really specific, I can make it false. And then now, what do you think is going to happen? You guessed it. First one's going to be closed, and the second and third one are going to be open. So I've just hit save, and you can see that it is defaulting correctly.
So at this
Awesome.
point, should we push this code up quickly?
So who wants us to push this code up so therefore they can have a working copy of the project? Should we put a toolbar in quickly at the top, and then
I was going to do that when we do the routing in a second.
Okay, got you. No, that's fine. So let's push this up. Okay, let's have a look. So whoever, actually I'll do this with VS Code so people can see it in VS Code. So on the left hand side you have this source code management. Oh, it even puts co-authored by Andrew. Nice. And these are all the files that came in via Angular, and it's also got our changes. We should have really done a commit when we created the project with ng new, and then we'll just had a commit just for our changes. But it's fine. Everyone's still following along? So now let me just say click component, toggle toggle button component. Okay, I'm just going to hit tick. I think you can push from here as well. I've never tried actually. I always do it from the command line. Push. Seems good. Oh, because I have to type in my password. Aha, because I have keys. You probably won't have to do that. So if I do git push and I enter my password. If anyone wants to know my password, it's just password. I mean, just so I don't forget. And then now that's pushed up. So on GitHub, that will be there. So let me make this a bit bigger. So if I make this a bit bigger, then, and I refresh this, you will see part 3. There you go. So if you do clone this project, navigate into part 3 and then do your npm start. And it probably has a readme in here. Yeah, it does.
You need npm install first. You need to do an npm install.
Yes,
before you can do npm
install.
start.
Thank you, Andrew. I think it should have it here. It does not. But
I can't believe that though. You're using version 8. I noticed still.
Oh yeah, I didn't upgrade my Angular.
It's upgrade your local instance. It's all right. It's fine for now. The difference is we're not going to be making use of today.
Yeah. Okay, so done that. Okay, pushed up. What next?
Should we add some routing?
Let's add some routing. Okay, let me follow you again.
Okay.
Where's Andrew gone? He's down here.
So
Follow.
we're getting some thumbs up. Okay, everyone's hopefully still with us and able to follow along. What we need to look at now is the app routing module file that was created when we made the app. This should be inside your app folder. And the important part is this routes block up here. At the moment, it's empty. So the routes block is an array, and it's an array of objects. So an object being just an open and close curly brace in JavaScript. And the first entry we want to put in is just our top level path. So it's a path with nothing in it. And then we need to tell it what do we want to load in. So we're going to want to load a component, and we'll probably call this the home component. Okay, and then we're also going to have another one, and let's call this contact. We'll use contact a bit later. We'll have a contact component. Eddie will have to create these in a moment. Contact component. Okay, so we'll have these 2 components on the page, and the first one will be the home one, then we'll have a contact one. But if Eddie can do the honors and just create those 2 components for me.
Sure.
Right now the project will be erroring.
Yep, let me do that. So if we go back to the terminal, you guessed it, we're going to use the ng command. Who remember? Claudia, you are very late, but thank you very much for joining. There have been loads of questions and people have been answering all sorts of questions and it's been brilliant. So now you have to catch up. So we expect 3 questions from you and you need to share a link to your project as well, and so we can see your homework. So who remembers the command? Let me clear this. And I'm going to go ng, I've forgotten, generate,
Yeah.
component. And what would you like it to be called?
So we have home.
Home. So when you create a component, remember that, yes, in the code base we use capital H for home component and capital C for component, as you can see behind here. But when you use the generator, it will do that for you. So you just need the first part, and it can be lowercase. So we'll generate the home component. And then bish bash bosh, bit of magic and it's done. And what else would you like, Andrew? Did you say contact?
And then a contact one as well, please.
Okay.
It's like a vowel and a consonant. We'll have you picking letters off the board for us next.
And a few more people are late.
Perfect.
But thank you very much for joining still. Okay, so you
But
can
just for
catch
those
up
that
on
have
all my-
recently joined, we are just doing a recap of the first 2 sessions quickly. We should be finished on this in about 10 minutes, and then we'll be moving on to doing the forms.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 2 pages available to us, a home and a contact page. At the moment, we need to tell the router where to find these. So Eddie has now created them, so I know where they're located now. And I can do an import for these. So I can say import, and then home component. And that's going to come from, let me see, the home, so /home/home.component. I think when Eddie created these components as well, there is a flag you can tell it to update the routing automatically. So you can always have a quick look at the docs if you like and see what that flag is.
I did not know that. Let me have a look. So in the documentation, if I go over to here, this is the CLI documentation. It's different to the Angular documentation, and it's different to the material documentation. And you've got generate. So let's go get started and let's have a look. So we do have a generate down here. And then
you go to generate for component.
Component. And then you have a few other options. Is there a routing one? I haven't used that before.
Oh, I thought there was one that tells it. Maybe
Routing. Yeah, there is. I must have gone past it. Route
there we
path
go.
used to
Yes.
produce the app shell. Okay. So that's something you can do as well. But or you can do it manually like we do now. It is just treat as a couple of lines of, not even code, kind of JSON object, as Andrew's done here. So it's not a problem. Be wary of not putting a / in there. Oops, not the dot. Because you don't need that.
You're right. Always do that in here, but yeah, you don't need it in here. It's when we actually call it, we have to say /. Cool. So at the moment, again, nothing yet has changed. So on the web page, we're not yet having a way of opening and navigating to these. And that's because in our app component HTML, we need to include a special tag, which is called router outlet. So router-outlet. And that just goes into our app component. And now if I hit save here, and if Eddie opens up the correct tab on his browser, we can see home works at the bottom there. That's not homework, that's home works. And yeah, if you go to the contact URL, hopefully we can see, it should say contact works. There we go. So we have 2 pages, but we haven't yet got a way of navigating between the 2. This is where we might want to introduce our material navbar, and we can put that at the top of this page. Now, what am I forgetting as I do this? So I've added Mat Toolbar, but I need to do something else, otherwise this is going to break. So let's see what happens if I hit save.
Blew up. And it's
Does it give us
underlined
an error?
as well.
Does it tell us why?
Mat Toolbar is
It
not
does.
a known element. And it will say
and there should be. It won't say it there, it will say it on the browser if you look at the console, just so that people can see what an error looks like and how to understand these errors sometimes. I don't know how easy it is to read that though, it's a bit small.
Yeah, it's the same. Mat Toolbar is not a known. Oops, sorry. Mat Toolbar is not a known element.
Cool. So to make it a known element, for those paying attention a minute ago, that's right. We need to go into the app module, and just like we did with the Mat button module, we need to include the Mat Toolbar module. And then we can go up here, and again, we need to import that. So I'm just going to copy this line and paste it in. And it's going to be from toolbar, so I'll just change the last part. And then Mat button becomes Mat Toolbar module. If I save that now, then we should see the page hopefully becomes fixed, and there's an empty toolbar at the top of the page. Perfect. So what should we put up there? We can put a bit of text. I'll just put a div. And just say welcome. inside the div. So that could be the title for our site, perhaps. And then we're going to want a couple of anchor tags on here. So the first one is going to be for home. And then we're going to want another one to take us to the contact page. So contact. And now we need to actually link to this. So normally if you're creating a link in HTML, you would use href everywhere. And you would pass in a URL, so it might be /. But that will reload the whole page. We don't need to reload the page because Angular is a single page application. So as such, it comes with its own directive to do this. And by directive, that's effectively an attribute that we put on the tag, and that's called router link. Okay. And router link takes an array. So again, as Eddie was saying a minute ago, we write JSON effectively inside these quotes. So I can put an array object with open and closing square brackets. And the first part of that for home, which is going to be the /. And then similarly for the contact page, we can again have a router link here. And inside this, we need to go to the home page, so the /. And then we have a second part to this array, which is called contact. So if I hit save on that, let's have a look and see what happens. There we go. We have a welcome with a very bunched up home and contact next to it. Okay, so let's just add a little bit of separation on that quickly, just to tidy it up so it's a bit easier to read. So in our app component SCSS, we can just affect any A tags that are in the app component module, or component generally. Let's add a bit of, let's say, padding around it. Just what, top nothing, left and right 1 EM. That should do. Let's have a look. Separate it out. Perfect. Nice. We could set a bit of color on there as well. What's a good color for a nav link?
You could also use the we could use the colors of the theme as well.
We could. I mean, we could make these just material buttons up there, right?
Let's make the material buttons.
There could be buttons.
I love that idea. Material buttons. Let's do it.
Okay, fine. So we can change. In fact, do I have to change it? A tags, I think, support map button as well, don't they? So I could just say map button in here. Let's do that. Map button. Let's find out. Save on that.
Nice.
Look at that. It does work.
And you could give it the opposite color.
So I can go into that SCSS and I can take that out. Okay. So then let me go back to here. Sorry. So I can, we could set a color on here. So we could.
Because for these ones you use the accent one, right? So you could use the or use primary. So you could use the accent one for these.
Yeah, we could do that. So we can say color accent here. Well, I was thinking, can we be clever of highlighting based on which page we're on? But that requires a bit more code to color those because we're using the map buttons now. I'm saying
okay, that's fine. We'll do that another time.
So we can color those. Oh, accent's very bright. Nice yellow you've got going there. How about we set the toolbar to be using the primary color? That might help us.
That's true.
But again, we can set the primary color on the toolbar.
Nice.
And now, look at that, the whole thing flipped around a bit.
So now if I click on them, you've got home page, as you can see it's changing down here. And then you've got contact page, which is also changing down here. But this is the same on all of them. And there's no page reload. I think it's important to see that there's no page reload. Because I could type it up here, but then each time I did that, it causes the page to reload. It looks awful. Whereas when I click on this, it is changing the URL, but it's not reloading the page. And so just, do you want to quickly recap, or I can quickly recap that, Andrew? So in the main app component HTML, we have the toolbar, and we also have this text, which is common to all the pages. And then we put the router outlet, and that's where, as we click between these, it replaces whatever we've configured the router outlet to be. So if I go to, let me close, I'll keep that one, let me close that one. If I go to app routing module, these are the two routes. So for nothing, we're going to load the home component, which in the HTML just had homeworks. And then in the contact component, if you go to /component, it will load this component. And if I go to the HTML, it says contact works. So also to recap on these buttons, you could put these buttons also in each page. It doesn't need to be just in the generic part.
I was going to actually move our content out, because at the moment we've got a toolbar and a router outlet. They should be deciding what page we're on. We should really take that content out. So if I just cut it out of there.
Oh, wait, so I'm
put
not
it
following you. 1
into-
second. Let me follow you
okay,
again.
sorry, I'll undo that. So in our app component, if we cut out that content we had and just drop that into the home component, so if I just replace the home works bit with that, I save it.
Oh, wait, why is it not following you? Oh, no, you are on home. It's following you. Okay. So
Then we
Andrew
should
has
hopefully-
moved what was on the home page. He's moved this to be on the home page. So you've got this is the same as before, but now it says homework. Oh no, where's homeworks gone? Did you remove it?
Homeworks has been removed. So we removed that
okay.
from the page, and we've just replaced what we did have in the app component into the home page. So now the home page is its own page with its own content, and contacts we haven't yet done anything with. So that still says contacts works, but without all the other content that was on there.
So now they're completely different pages. So you can still, so what's generic, what's the same, what's shared is this toolbar. As you can see at the top, there's no point copying and pasting. I mean, you could copy and paste that into each component, but there's no point. And you could also, if you didn't want it here, you could make a custom component for navigation, so a navigation component, put that in, and then on this page, you would just have that component and the router outlet. But I'm not going to bother with that now, that's fine. There's only a few lines here. And then as you navigate between these two pages, the toolbar stays the same. Hopefully that all makes sense. Are you all still with us? This is still recapping from previous sessions. We haven't even got into the more exciting stuff yet. Okay. Everyone gives a thumbs up if you're still following along, or give us a thumbs down. And if you give us a thumbs down in the comment, just let us know what issue you have. Okay, so what's next?
I was going to say we could easily invite people to have a look at the code with us if they've got VS Code as well.
True. Do you want? Should we push what we've got up? Would everyone like us to push this code
Yeah, so let's
up?
push this up.
So you can navigate between these two pages yourself. Let me do that. So I'm going to say home and contact page added. Well, I don't need to say added. It's pretty obvious that it's added. So if I do that, go to this other terminal and go git push. I pushed it up. So what you'd have to do is if you wanted the code and you've already cloned the project, you would then do git pull and it would bring it down. Therefore, there we're in sync. So when you do a git commit, it's just saving it locally. And when you do a push, it's pushing all your saves, so all your commits up to the repo. And when you do a pull, it's pulling down anything that anyone else has pushed. So by you doing a pull, it will bring down these commits that I've put up. Okay.
Be slightly aware that if you have been making changes locally and following us along, doing a git pull will probably give you an error saying you have local changes. So you have two options there. You can either stash them. I don't know if you want to show how a stash works, or you could commit them to a branch and then continue with what we're doing here.
That's true. That's a good point. And you might want two projects. You might want the ones that we're doing, and then have your own project, and you can move things between both of them. But any questions, let us know. We're here to help. Right, Andrew, what's next?
Okay.
Forms?
I think we're ready to create a bit of a form, aren't we?
It's 7:30. Let's start on this week's session. Numero uno,
Cool.
3. Not numero uno, that's number 1. Number 3. I'll just keep it to English.
Awesome. Right. I think we need to start by just having some data that we can filter against with our form. So let's create.
Would it be
just a
worth
list.
just getting
again, material has a. Sorry,
I
go on.
was just going to say, if you're going to put a form on there, should we just create an input form on there that does nothing?
Yeah, we can do. I don't mind either way. So I'm going to take our app toggle button that we had, and I'm just going to remove that from the page for now. I don't think we need that, do we?
No, keep it. We need it. You don't like it? Okay. You
Okay.
can move it if you want.
Well, it's only because it gets slightly in the way of what we want to focus on now.
Okay, maybe
It's all
leave,
there.
leave
It's committed.
one.
It's in the history. It's in the history. We can bring it back later if we need to. Okay. So first of all, to create a form, we have the standard HTML form tag. So that's no different to if you were creating a form that might submit to say a single stack application, say a PHP form or something. So no different when the semantics come into play. And then we can have an input on the page. And that's the most simplest form, right? So we can put some, call it a type text, which is good practice to say what kind of field it is. But if I was to just hit save on that now, you should see on Eddie's page, a single form field has appeared with an entry point on it. And you can type something in there. So there's an empty form field. And we can still add labels. So I can give that a label and just say search, put a colon next to it. Obviously, if you're using labels, you should really be saying what it's for. So we say label for, we'll call it search. We'll give the input an ID called search as well. That just ties the label and the input together. Sort of standard HTML here. I deleted Eddie's message saying that I'm a nerd, so that's good. Okay, cool. So I'll take the colon out. We don't really need that there. It doesn't look great. Eddie is cool. I'm going to save that and that will disappear too.
You removed the colon purposely so it would refresh my writing.
Okay. Now that at the moment is not tied to Angular in any way whatsoever. We have no link between the form and the TypeScript code. To do that, there are a couple of things we have to do. This is where things get a little bit more advanced. So we're going to be using something called reactive forms in Angular. It's probably the most common form capability you'll come across. There are two others. You have a normal normal Angular form, which is part of what's called the forms module. You have the reactive forms module, and you also have the dynamic forms module. So the standard form module you won't use very often unless you're perhaps building your own smart components that are input components. And dynamic forms, unless you're perhaps building a survey or something where you dynamically need to just change what's on the page, they're not likely to use those. Reactive forms actually can do some dynamic stuff anyway. So dynamic forms are probably the most popular. Use those at least 90% of the time, if not 100% of the time. So that's what we're going to focus on because that's the main one that everyone uses. So the first thing we have to do is tell Angular that we want to use the reactive forms module. So we go into our imports in our app module and we say import the React. Well, I don't know if my
do you want me to look at the docs?
It's not going to find it, is it? Yeah, well, I'm just trying to see if it finds it for me. I don't seem to be getting my Angular help. I was mostly looking for the import. I think it's from Angular Forms, right?
I think so.
I'm just going to double check, make sure I get the import from the right location. The Reactive Forms module comes from, yeah, it looks like it just comes from Angular Forms. Okay.
You found it? Okay.
So I'll import that as well. So at the top of the file here, we say Reactive Forms module. From @Angular/forms. Why is it not finding that down there? Let me just make sure I spelled it right. Interesting. It doesn't seem to be. You still be giving me a squiggly line. Are you getting a squiggly line on your screen?
Yeah, I'm getting a squiggly line. Oh, because you haven't. You put it outside, outside the brackets.
I haven't on my screen, so that's interesting that it's done that on yours.
Oh wow, you haven't.
It's connected slightly somewhere.
Okay, look, if I move it, is it going under declarations or imports, right? Because it's a module. So if I
it should be in imports.
Yeah, that's worked.
Okay, it's in totally the wrong place on my screen. Something's gone wrong with the
Okay,
share.
so try something. Just write something. Let me see. If we go to the HTML file, write something on line 8. Let's just check we're on the same line, or something there's a disconnect and reconnect.
So the app component HTML file.
No, I'm on home, but yeah, it doesn't matter. App component.
Okay, I got to home. Okay, home line 8.
That went to line 9. Okay, interesting. Yeah, something's a bit odd. Okay, I'll disconnect and reconnect.
Okay, we reload. Leave
It
session.
wouldn't be a real live stream if we weren't all techies, all coders, and we had some technical issues. Do you know how many coders does it take to get this working? It's the first time that's happened though. That's quite interesting. We've got a bit of
I think we have had it happen before. I think it's. I think after about an hour of sharing, things seem to start going weird. We had this yesterday as well when we were playing
Did
around.
we? Okay. Oh, now import's busted. Oh, some things have really gone skew with. Oh yeah. So I think it thought you were editing different lines. There we go. So if I save that, hopefully it brings it back. Okay. What else is broken now? Let's see. What else did Andrew break? I don't know.
I don't know. Everything still looks wrong on my side. Are you sure you're fixing it?
I think I'm fixing something. Yeah. Why has it got you as orange? I don't know. So that button, I'm going to close that. I'm going to close the tabs we don't need. Andrew, stop breaking stuff.
Am I?
Yeah, you're editing one line below where you think you are. I don't know why. Not
No,
you.
I'm not. I think I'm
obviously.
editing about
No, you.
20 lines out of place by the looks of things.
Okay, let me close VS Code. And who's having fun watching us mess up? This doesn't usually happen. Actually, it does happen. Who am I kidding?
Yeah.
Let me close VS Code.
I'll quit it. You quit it, and let's reopen.
I'm gonna try and put this back.
You might need to send me a new link.
Yeah, I'll probably send you a new link. Let me put this back a little bit to get it to a half working state. Oh no, it's proper messed up. Wow, it's got commas and all sorts in all sorts of places. Okay, I'm just gonna save that. Let me close it and reopen it. So if I close it, if you remember how I can open it, I can just do code dot and it should open VS Code. And then we'll reconnect Andrew again. Here we go. So we've opened it. This looks familiar. We'll go to live share, which is now disappeared. That's new. Andrew, I no longer have live share.
That must be what's gone wrong. Give it a moment.
Oh no, it says activating extensions. Oh, they're still loading. Okay, we're good. We're good. Don't panic. Don't panic. I didn't panic. Let's do it. Okay, so live share. Let's invite Andrew. Start a collaboration session, or just invite Andrew. He's here already. Invite by email. Okay, and it wants me to send an email to Andrew. Okay.
Okay, good. I got the email. Let's hope this works.
Okay, let's let him join, and fingers crossed. Are all your fingers crossed? Maybe VS Code got coronavirus. It's jumped. Okay, Andrew's all connected. So if I say I follow Andrew, we should see what he's doing. We can see him fix kind of what went a bit skew with.
Oh, let's hope it's working okay. Okay, right. So app component module looks okay. Not quite where I put things, but that'll do. If I open up then it was the home component we were working in, and that form. What we can now do is in the home component TS file, we can set up the form. Now, there are a couple of things we have to import. First of all, we need what's called a form builder available. So we create that by saying private. Inside the constructor, we say private. And I call it forms normally, which is going to be of type form builder. And what Angular will do is anything you put in the constructor, Angular will inject an instance of that class to make it available to you. If Eddie wants to explain that better, he's more than welcome to. But yeah, it's an automatic injection for dependencies that you're using in projects. And Form Builder, being that we've imported it as a module, is available to us. And I can just add that import at the top to say Form Builder from Angular Forms. Oops.
So I wasn't listening. I know you mentioned my name. Whatever Andrew said is probably correct, so it's fine. What were we talking about?
Right. So we then have, I was just saying that in constructors, when we declare something in the signature of a constructor, this will be automatically injected by Angular with an instance of that class available to us. So forms will become available as a form builder object that we can use. Okay, what we also need is, so that we can use something on the HTML, is a public, and what we're going to call this is a search form, isn't it? So we'll call it search form. And this is going to be of type form group. This is a group of form elements that we're going to put on the page. And again, from Angular Forms, we can import that. So I just put a comma form group on here. And that's great. We now have effectively a form group that we can add some fields to, and we can use the form builder to create that form up. So in the init, what we're now going to say is that this search form is going to be using the forms piece. So we say this dot forms and then dot group. And this will be an object that contains all of our form fields. So the first form field that we've added to the page, what was that called? We did it a moment ago. I think it was just search, right? We called it search up here. So we'll keep that consistent. We'll call it search.
So don't worry, you're going to get a chance to play with this yourself, and we will answer questions. So this is the last part of what we're going to demo for you right as of now. Then you're going to go away, have a play, and you're going to put your questions in the chat. And I got a little surprise for some of you. That's why I went a bit quiet. I was setting up my back camera so you can see my command center just before you start doing your work. I won't show it yet.
Okay. So this search form, we now need to, on the HTML, tell the form that we wanted to use that search form. So in here, we tell it that there's a form group called search form. And we also need to tell the input that this input is going to be controlling that search field. So we say in here, form control name. This is really good. I'm going to remember all this off the top of my head. The IDE normally tells me.
I don't remember anything. You remember these really well.
Okay, so form control name, I believe, is what it should be, and we call that search. So search there maps to the search that we called this field. So search form is the form, that's a group of elements, and search is one of those inputs. So we're telling it in the HTML, the form is going to be using the search form group of elements, and the input here is going to be the search input for that field. So that will bind the two together. Again, as we start typing, you can type something if you want. You're still not going to see much that's very interesting. We need a way of actually seeing what someone has input into here. So let's put a button onto this as well. So let's have a button. And the type of button is going to be a submit. And we'll just say go.
You're missing double quotes.
Oh, so I am. Well, it doesn't necessarily matter because HTML doesn't need that as such.
But we're teaching good practices here.
Good practice, yeah. So we'll have a submit, and what we also need to do is tell the form what we want it to do when the submit occurs. So this is an action, so we put round brackets. We want to have a submit action, and we just want to say perform search, let's say, which is going to be a function we need to create. So perform search has got a squiggly line right now because we haven't yet added it in the TS file. So we'll add another function. So you'll notice as well, when I put the search form and create that, I did that inside the ng on init, so that the component will prepare that before any HTML gets shown. If I hadn't put inside the on init, then you will see an error probably appear on the page where you're trying to use things that don't yet exist. So just important to note that it needs to go inside an ng on init there. So what we then have is the public perform search method. And again, this is going to return a void. We're not going to return anything from this. And for the moment, let's just console log this, shall we? So we'll say console.log, and we're just going to say get this search form, and then, oh gosh, what is it? Just value, I think should be okay for now. I think value is fine for now. There are a couple of other things you can do if you've got, say, hidden fields and stuff, but value will be fine most of the time. Let's just console that. So if you want to give that a try, just put something in there and hit go. What happens?
Yay, search. This is a test. That's probably behind me. People can see it? Okay, yeah, they can. I'm just checking the output. People can see it. Nice. Okay, what happens, Andrew, is this easy to do that I know you've put in a submit button, so it appears in the search like this each time I type something. Out of curiosity, and it's not something we'll use in this project, I know people find it quite interesting. Is it possible as you type for it just to display underneath? So
so obviously we combine that straight onto the page. I mean, that's fairly straightforward. We can say in the HTML here, we do the double brackets, and we can literally just say search form here. And that will take everything that's in the search form and display it as an object underneath.
So you need to put a dot, don't you? Which one we want.
Yeah, I mean, what we can do is pipe it into JSON as well. Let's do that.
So as I start typing, oh no, it doesn't like that.
So we need the pipes. We haven't yet got the common
okay,
module.
keep it simple. Just add just this field.
Okay, so we say dot get, and then search. And you probably want dot value on there as well in that case.
Yeah. And I can type HELLO. This is we are, you are. I was trying to think of the French school. Code Mortals. Yay! So you can type, and it appears immediately underneath. And then as I type, and if I hit the button, it will also then log it in the console log below. So forms are getting interesting. It hasn't got material design on it. If you notice, the button doesn't look like the other buttons yet. Don't worry, we'll get to that. We'll get there. Or actually, something maybe you can do. Okay, Andrew. Sorry, carry on. Oh, Andrew's gone. His chair disappeared. Well, while he's gone, let's take a few-minute break. Go get yourself a drink, and I'm going to show you my command center, because I love showing my command center on all my streams. I'm very proud of it. So this is my command center. What do you think? My screen, a bit of light, camera, back camera. I'll wave to you up there. So yeah. Right. Anyway, back to the coding, because I get distracted a lot. This is why Andrew and me work well together. He's too focused, I'm too distracted, and then in the middle we find a good balance. But hopefully you're all still awake and you're still enjoying Angular, and those React fans out there, I hope you're seeing that Angular as a framework is quite useful. Right, let me ditch my my back camera and head back to the code. Oh, it should ditch it, he says. Okay, camera's ditched. You need more screens. I do. No more screens.
Yeah, I've got my laptop, my iPad, 2 screens, and various other things out at the moment, so it's just pretty crazy.
Yes.
But it's nice to be at home with all these bits of kit lying around.
Exactly.
I don't have a camera like Eddie behind me though, so I can't show you.
Not yet. Next time.
Okay, cool. So we have a basic search form. It's not doing a great deal right now. Yeah. Do we want to get it to filter a list? Would that be useful?
Let's filter a list. Let's do it. Okay,
so first
I'll make the list if you want. Okay, let me do the list.
Okay, go on then. You make the list. I was going to do a material list, and you want an array within the TypeScript that just shows the list will just loop through. So,
yeah, I will do it easy. Don't worry. So underneath this, let me.
Cool.
Oh, I was wondering if I could do something really clever. Oh, could I do something clever? Could we have 2 buttons, one that adds to the list and one that searches the list? Am I trying to be too complicated?
Let's add something to the list in a minute, perhaps. Let's get it filtering the list first. Then we can have another form, perhaps, that's going to add something into the list.
So I'm going to go straight into the material because I want list stuff. I don't want to do what Andrew's done. I want some cool lists. So now it's kind of back in my control. Let me see. Let's get a list from material. We've got some nice lists here. You can get some fancier lists where you have icons and stuff, but we'll get to that. Don't worry. So let me add lists. I'm a copy and paste person, not like Andrew, who remembers everything. So I'm going to add in this one. Andrew will say it's not alphabetically, so let me just move it up one. Mat list, there we go. And then I'll copy and paste this.
I'm not worried about that right now.
Put it down here. And then I hit save. So now I've got lists available. And let's go to the overview and let's have a look at some code. And if I just grab that, and then I go to, are we doing this on, what page are we on? We're on the home page. So if I
keep it on the home page for now. Yeah.
So if I go to the home page and I put in the list and I hit save, we should have 3 things in the list. There you go, 1, 2, 3. So let's put some names in here. So who are we going to have? So I'll just put, I can spell my name. I can kind of spell Andrew's name. Who else have we got in the chat? Let's put a few people. I want to actually use your YouTube usernames rather than your full names, because then I can almost kind of copy and paste. Oh, we have Code Mortals in there. I mustn't forget that. And who else do we have higher up? Oh, typo. And then who else do we have? And oh, wrong one. Okay, I think we've got a few people in. Hit save.
I was going to say, don't go adding too many next. You want to move this into the code, unless you're going to have me do that.
No, I can do that, no problem. So we've got a list there. And so we've got a list. So like Andrew said, I don't want to keep copying and pasting a line each time you want to add someone. Let's make it a bit more dynamic. So what we can do, if we go to, we're in home component HTML. So if we go into home component TS, we can create another class variable that is available in the HTML by making it public. And then we can say, I don't know, data, probably a bad name, but we'll leave it like that for now. And then we'll put that equal to an array of what we were just doing. So I actually couldn't copy and paste this out and delete. I've done a terrible way of doing this, but I wanted to show you going from hard-coded to an array. So I'm just saying really stupid. I'm going to paste it in. Obviously this is not going to work. So I'm just going to remove all the HTML now. And then you can do like that, I think, with a comma. So, you know, I should have typed it. Would have probably been easier. But we don't want easy. We want exciting and cool. And like Andrew said, I've added way too many. But ask your questions while I'm doing this. Ask your questions in the chat. How is your project coming along? You will be working on it more in a minute. Oh, missing out some commas there. Almost done. 3 more to go. Okay. 2 more. Don't worry about those underlines, the blue ones. They're just saying that there's typos, but as these are names, they're always going to complain about those. So, right. Now we have this. I can save it. Nothing will change because it's still hard-coded on here. But what I can do is I can delete all of those. And like we had the ng if before, I can change this to a loop and loop round the data. So in here, what I would do is I have, actually, let me do the for loop first. Andrew, remind me, star ng4, and then it's for...
let something of...
Yep, so let item of data. So it's going to, for each item, because data is an array, so for each, what I'm calling an item, for each part, it will set it to item, and then we can write it in here, so item. And if I hit save now, this is not going to change. But actually, because you won't believe me, oh, where am I gone? Because you won't believe me, let me remove a few out of here, and I can undo and put those back in a second. So I'm going to save that. Again, nothing's going to change because I haven't saved the HTML. If I save it now, you see 2. So if I go back to the TS file and undo and hit save again, you're going to see loads more. And I'm not changing the HTML, right? Because there's only 1 line of HTML and it's going to loop over it. And the great thing about that is, if now I've ever wanted to change anything on here, I don't know, like put a hyphen or something, I only add it to 1 place rather than add it to loads of places. So that's really, really useful. And it's also really useful because then you can filter data, you can do pipes, which we're going to do next week, but it means you can do things, you could truncate the strings, but it will just happen every single time.
Cool. So do you want me to add how we can filter that list?
Yeah, go ahead. Let me follow
so
Andrew
I'm just going to take the role piece out for the moment. We don't really need that attribute. It's nice for accessibility, but I'm not going to get into accessibility while we're doing this at the moment. Okay, so we've got this mat list. We've got a list of names on the page. If we wanted to filter that out and search even just for a partial part of the name, there are 2 ways we can do this. One is we have a function that will return the updated list. The other is we can use a pipe. It sounds like Eddie wants us to wait until next week for pipes, so we won't use the pipe right now. We will just call a function. So rather than saying let item of data, if we go into our TS file and create a new function in here, in fact, we can do it. No, let's leave the perform search one alone. Let's do it in here. We can say public. We wanted to do this as we're typing. So as we type, it's going to update. So we're going to say public. Say that there's another way we can do this. Ooh, okay, let's
keep it simple.
Stick to this way. This should be okay still. So we'll say get names, and then we can pass in. Actually, I don't want to pass anything in because we're using the search form for it. So it's going to return an array of strings.
That's just a fancy feature in VS Code. I don't know why. I think I've got a plugin that auto completes it. So that's my fault for when Andrew closed it here. It kind of did like a HTML closing, but ignore it.
Yeah. So we can say this data filter, and then for each items or name in this case that we've got, we can tell it to look and see if the name matches with what we've got. What's the best way what bit of JavaScript can we use to best match a partial part of the name?
Could use a regex. Everyone loves regex. Or you could just do an exact match. Just do an exact match.
You're going to go for an exact match, do you? Okay. So we can say that it's going to need to equal this search form, and then .get, and then the value of the search field. Okay. So that's going to filter out anything in the array that exactly matches at the moment. So I would have to type. If you want to type, Eddie? Oh, actually, no, sorry, this isn't going to work just yet. I missed one step. We need to update our HTML to use that get names array. What we should also do, though, because now this is going to basically hide the whole list. They're all gone because it's expecting substance. What we could do is say if this search form, there's a couple of special things we could use. We could look to see, is it pristine? Has anyone changed anything yet? Etc. etc. But what we'll just say that if this search form get search, and then we'll just look at the value length, and we'll say equals 0. And then we can put in just return this data, so unfiltered.
So it will return the original data, and if you type something in, or let me scroll up a bit, hiding behind you. So just to recap, in the HTML, we're going to use get names function rather than the raw data, and then that allows us to call this function, which then, if there's nothing being typed into the form field, it will return the full data as before, so nothing's going to change. And whereas if there is something typed in, it's going to try and filter it on the name. On the value.
At the moment, that's not working. It might be that we have to say does not equal undefined. That's better. Yeah.
Okay.
So everything in a form will start with an undefined value until you start typing in there. But what that does mean is that if you were to remove everything, this isn't going to work. So you can try it out and just see what happens. Because right now, if you were to type something and then delete it, the field list would effectively disappear. It would no longer be undefined.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, if I want to search something incorrect, so if I do this and hit go, we've got console log in there.
Yeah.
Where is the other
so you've got the console log still. So I didn't put this into the perform search. We could do that though. I can change this slightly. We have to change the code a bit.
Okay.
So if you want to do it based on when you hit something, we will need to store a value up here. So we can say public.
Oh, we can do it another way if you want. We can do it so that you don't have to hit anything.
That's what I was doing, but unfortunately, I had a feeling it wasn't going to work. It doesn't pick up the changes.
Okay, we'll keep it simple for now.
To do that, we can do it, but instead you have to go into this .search form. I think it's .changes, isn't it? Or value changes.
Value changes.
.subscribe.
Oh, okay. You're gonna get into observables now. Okay. That was next week.
Yeah, so a form has this special value changes. When a value changes on the form, it creates this event that you can subscribe to.
A bit
Eddie
like
mentioned observables, but I won't go into what observables
we
are. But
won't
this
go
is
into it
effectively an
yet.
event.
Don't be scared. It's a bit like a promise, but it stays open. So with a promise, you wait for it to complete, and then you get your data. With an observable, which is a subscribe, it works like a promise, but you can continue to get more data. So in this case, as we type in the search, we want it to keep giving us the data each time. So we'll go into more details next time.
Yeah, so what we're going to have to do is create another object called filtered data. And we can start filtered data in the init as you're saying this filtered data equals this data. So it starts with that full list of data still. And then when there's a change that occurs, we can run this piece of code that we did have that was returning something. I'll just take that, cut that out, delete the rest of that function. We don't need it anymore. And say this filtered data equals, and then what we were doing, so this data filter, get the search form value out. Now it should, if I save that, but actually we need to also, again, in the HTML, we need to update it and use filtered data. So change that.
Oh, wait, sorry, not following you. Wait a second.
Okay.
Let me follow you, and if you can explain that again.
Yeah, so we've created a new variable called filtered data. We are assigning filtered data to be the list of data that we first created, because we don't want to lose that list. And then filtered data, every time a value changes, we're going to update filtered data to be a filtered version of that list.
So filtered,
hopefully, and also in the HTML, we had to update it as well to use filtered data in our ng4.
So we don't want to change the original data. That's why we've made a copy of it into filtered data. And filtered data can keep getting updated each time with less results or more results. But then it always starts at the beginning, which is the original data, which is just called data. Okay, so I don't need to hit go because we don't need that. So if I just type in E, D, D is an exact match, i.e. we get...
Nothing, because you need capital E.
Capital E, yep, it's an exact match. And, well, who else do we have? We had Andrew. So you can see it's not like before that it was putting out what I'm typing. It actually was search. So you could have two Andrews and then you would get two results. But it would be good if we could make it so it's more of not an exact match.
Yeah, so we could use a regex. So what we can do is in this subscribe, when a value change occurs.
Could you use in?
No, because it's a string.
Oh, yes.
So you'd have to literally say const check, let's say, equals new regex. So regex with a capital E.
I don't think so.
Check.
P.
Oh, there's a P missing. Not often I create one like this.
And why is it complaining?
And then we're going to use the search form value to be what the regular expression is. And then we can put things like an I or a G or something in there. We'll say I to ignore case at the moment. And now in here, what we can then say is check is it dot matches and name. Might be the wrong way around.
Shall I Google it? Let's see, everyone needs to Google stuff. Let me think. Let me just remove the...
It might be match, that might be why, it's not yes.
It should autocomplete. I thought it was test.
I'm getting no autocomplete working for me, so it's really interesting trying to remember everything without an autocomplete test patch.
I think you're doing really well. You've remembered a hell of a lot more than me. It's test.
Cool. Okay.
Okay,
So,
so if I hit
give that a
save-
try then.
So we've got all the results to begin with. And if I start typing C, I'm guessing we should have 1, 2 results. If I type AN, we should only have 1 result. So AN, Andrew, ED, just Eddie. And if I type C, we get 2 results. So our search is working. Will it appear and disappear? Yes, it will. So because we've got that subscribe at the top, where is it gone? Here we go. Because we've got this subscribe, it's going to keep listening, and each time the search form, the values change, it's going to trigger this function. And what the function does is it creates a regex, and then it's going to do the filter on the data. So each time. So this button is just for the console log that you can see underneath down here. So we don't actually need it for the search. So in fact, I can even remove that. We don't need to perform the search with that. And then in the HTML, I actually just need to remove this as well.
Yeah, so we don't need to do that perform search. Yeah, that's there for more if you want to wait until someone actually says I want to do it, which in most cases that's probably a better practice, is to wait until someone hits go rather than doing things automatically. But this is more fun. I like this for just examples. It's more fun.
Yeah, it's really quick, right? So I can just type, M. Oh no, M is, you've got 3 names. A, you got a lot more. E, as Y. What have we got for just one name with Y? So, yeah, CL, just one, CO.
Do you want to add another form to the page, one that lets us add something to this list?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so
and then it's time for everyone to do their own work. I'm conscious of time. I'm keen for people to have a go as well and to come with their questions. So
cool.
Yep,
let's do this fairly quickly. This is going to be an example, basically, of doing what we've done already, but just to sort of reinforce things a little bit from a different perspective. So we're going to need another form on the page. So we created a search form before. So let's create a form. Let's call it public add form. Not the greatest of names, perhaps, but that'll do. Okay, this is going to be a form that lets us add entry. So in the onInit, the ng onInit below, we need to set that up. So we'll say this.add form equals, and again, we have to create a new this forms group. And inside that form group, we add whatever the name of that field is going to be. So it's just going to be a name. That's what we're creating, the names. And that will now mean we have a new form available in the code. We have to add that onto the HTML. So if I go into our home component, let's put it above the form. Let's create another form. So form. And similar to before, we need to say which form is being controlled by Angular. So form group. But this one is going to be our add form. And then inside the form, we can do, again, a label. And we'll just call it name. And then we can add the input. And again, we should really have a for, and then the name that we're going to call it, so name. And then an ID, and IDs need to be unique, but we haven't used name yet anywhere else on the page, so that's okay. So name. Again, we'll give it a type of text. It's always good to give types. And then which field is it controlling? So the form control name here, again, is called name. So that ties us back to the form with a name value. Now, we probably do want a button here to say when we're ready. We don't want to just start adding people as you type. That would be quite good fun. You have people with just single letter names. So again, what do we want this to be? It's going to be of type submit. And then we just say add inside the button. Ooh, inside the button, inside the tag, add. Okay, and again, final thing we had to do was listen to the submit event. So round brackets, submit. And then it needs to call a function, so we'll just call it add name, let's say. And we need to create that function on the TypeScript. So as I hit save, you can see the page is updated. You've got a name field appeared with an add button. But it doesn't yet have an action associated, so we need a public add name function. And all we're going to do is we're going to take that public data list and we're going to add something to it. So we're going to say this dot data. Now, what's the best way of adding to an array in JavaScript? Should we use push? Is that a good practice these days?
I think push is still popular. I know you used something else. What do you use? I can't remember now.
So to avoid mutating things, we really should be creating a new array, and we can populate that array with what we already have. So this dot data. So we use the spread operator, and that effectively has now taken a clone and recreated the data field. And then we can add whatever else we want to put in there. So in this case, it's going to be this dot add form dot and then get the name field and then the value of that name field. Just to drop that on. So that would put it onto the end. We could put it onto the start if we wanted by swapping those two around.
Yeah, let's swap them around. Let's have it at the top.
Put it at the top. Okay, so let me take this data, cut that out, and then so this would be like doing an unshift now, effectively, rather than a push.
True.
And save that. Okay, do you want to give that a go? I think that's everything we needed to add.
So if we search, we have got, like we said before, we can search for C, and it brings up everyone who has C in their names, or E. There's a lot more E's. A. Or actually, and if we add one, if I just said Eddie2 and hit add, does not work. Andrew, you broke it.
Oh, was there an error? We have got add name being called, haven't we? So submit is calling add name. Button submit, form, add form. I think, do I use the right thing? No, I did call it name. This add form get name dot value.
Let's debug. Let's put a console log in.
Go on then. Let's have a look, see what this add form is coming back with.
Oh, that's not what I wanted to do.
I'll tell you what. I know what it is.
What?
We've assigned this data, but what we aren't doing is triggering the value change to occur. So if you were to actually type something in your search, like put an E in there, Eddie2 will probably appear.
Oh yes, well noticed. It's because it was there, but it hasn't been reloaded.
Yeah, so what we should probably do is reset what the value of this filtered data is. So if we just below the add name, add a this dot filtered, and we could create what we're doing in these two lines to be a function, so it actually runs the full validation against what search you've done. That's probably actually the better thing to do. Let's do that instead. If we create a new function in here, public, and let's call this perform search. I know we have already deleted something called perform search a minute ago, but let's do perform search again. It's going to be a void. We're not actually returning anything here. And I'm just going to take the two lines that we put inside this subscribe and drop them into the perform search. And now the subscribe can, we do this all in one line now. We can say
ES6 style.
This perform search. And equally, we can then call this perform search after we've added a name to update our results. So this perform search. Right, how's that? Now perhaps let's give that a try, see if that adds things to the... So you'll notice Eddie2 disappeared because it hasn't remembered this. There's no database we're pulling things from. It's just refreshed the page, so anything that we had done has been lost. But the search is still working, so that's good.
There's only one Eddie. Yep, you're right. It's back to how it was.
Let's make another Eddie then.
Eddie2. It's appeared.
Eddie3.
And then why? The reason why I'm adding... Go on, sorry.
If you were to filter on Eddie, if you filter on Eddie now...
That's why I was adding multiple Eddies, because if I do an E, yes, there's loads of results, but if I filter down further, and let me put actually one more Eddie, but with a Y, I'll put a 1 in there too, and then add it, and I'll put Eddie2. And so now if I search for Eddie, there's loads, or Ed, there's lots of them, and if I go one more D, it's still the same. I can go I, and now I've just got the IE Eddies. And I put a Y, I've just got the Y Eddies.
And whilst you're filtered on that, so filter on Eddie again.
How far? That one?
Yeah, that's fine. And then add an Eddie4.
Now you just want to show off.
So we should, when you add with the IE.
Oh, yes. I was like, it's busted.
Okay, and it should maintain the search.
That's
adds the
awesome.
Eddie4.
No page reload. No, like, kind of flick of the screen. You can add some more things to this. and you still keep the same features. Like, how slick is that? And there isn't that much code. So now you're all form gurus. I'm conscious of the time. It's 8:20. How about you start coding? And because we've been talking for like an hour and a half, so you start coding, and we'll just chat. You know, put some comments in the chat. Let us know what you're co-working on, and let us know what your challenges are with Angular, with your forms, and we'll help. What do you think, Andrew?
What's a good way that people might be able to join us? Could you bring up a browser full screen, perhaps, that people could join on a Hangout too? What would be a good way that someone could join and show us any troubles they're having?
Let me just commit this. We just did the so I can push
Yeah,
up
get
everyone
that
to see.
committed.
So form with search. So if I commit that, I think to add people to Hangouts might be too many. We could add people if they want to join on the live stream. We could add that. It might be best if they start asking questions and we see how we get on, depending on how their questions are. They could invite me via VS Code, and I can have a look. Let me push this up. Git push.
Has anyone got any question? Anything they would like us to repeat, go back over? Anything you want right now? This is kind of your time. Well, it's been your time all the way through, really. But now the focus really is on you guys. Let us know, is there anything that wasn't clear that you'd like us to just talk about again? We did cover quite a lot. I know hopefully we repeated things a couple of times, but by all means, ask as many questions, have a go, tell us where your problems are. We're here to help.
Who is still awake, I think is question one. Put a thumbs up in the chat if you're still awake. Probably all fallen asleep. It's Monday, right? First day at work. You're probably working from home. So you probably actually got up late and didn't wake up till like 5 to 9. And you had your breakfast on your 9 o'clock call and your stand-up call. So actually you should be really bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
We could talk about coronavirus whilst everyone's having a think. I mean, how many people are actually getting to work from home now? How many people are being dragged into their offices still? I know pretty much everywhere, or everyone I know, has said the default now is work from home and only come in if it's absolutely critical to see people face to face. So it's going to be an interesting thing going forward, right? I mean, if this whole working from home is a success and people get a lot done, then we could find a lot more places asking people to work remotely more frequently. So
that is true, and working remote is freaking awesome. We've been doing it for like full time for like 6 years, and it's been awesome. It's been really good. I mean, when you work from home loads, you get to set up your command center to look like this. Oh, my TV's off.
You spend a hell of a lot of money on yourself, I think, when you're working from home. Yeah,
but it's worth it.
I don't even think I want to repeat how much money I've spent in this room.
Yeah, but you know,
it's a little bit silly.
It's so worth it, right? Because you spend
it is
so much time here. It's been like 10 hours a day here. And I love it. You know, for me, it's not work. It's awesome. So yeah, working from home, major thumbs up. It is very cool. Right, everyone watching, how is your code coming along? I can give you a wave at this camera or that camera. How is your code?
We've got Brazil here, I noticed. People in Brazil joining us.
Yeah, I was practicing my Portuguese.
Absolutely, yeah. It's great to have people from so far apart being able to join us here.
It is awesome. It's great. I think it's one of Amanda's friends or one of the GDGs from Brazil. So that's really cool. Or maybe from WTM, Women Tech Makers. So thank you for joining us. So what's everyone else coding on? I mean, this time is for you all, and we want to help. So send us.
Is there something you'd like us to do? If you've got something you'd like us to just show you, like how do you? I don't know. We're not submitting things to a database yet, but if there's something else that you would like to see that you think that's something really popular that everyone uses. What about form validation? We could do a little on form validation quickly, perhaps.
Yeah, let's get started. Let's do some form validation.
Okay. Well,
Until we get questions.
We are here for questions mostly, but whilst the questions are quiet and people perhaps are thinking and trying things out, I'll do a little bit on form validation. So we have a name field here. What do you think should be a good validation? It's a required field, so we shouldn't be able to hit the add button unless you put something in there, perhaps. Okay, so there's two things that you can put. So I've been putting these empty arrays in. So I've declared a name field, which is an empty array right now. And that array takes two main things. The first thing is a start value. So we could put into here the name Eddie. That would help Eddie when he's putting a number on the end all the time. If I was to just save that with Eddie in there, you'll see the form should refresh, and the default value that's in there now is Eddie. It starts with. So that's set an initial value for you. So if you were doing an edit form, perhaps you'd put the fields in there that have already been set. To add some validation now, we put another array. So we put a comma with an array in, and in here we can say what we want. So we have something called validators. And then inside here, there are a few default ones built in. One is called required. Okay. Now I need to add that import, which I believe comes from forms as well. This is really testing my memory.
I'm still so impressed. I'd have to look all this up. I use the autocomplete too much.
I use the autocomplete all the time, but because of all the code reviews generally, I guess, because we do a lot of code reviews, you tend to spot what things get added. And I guess the number of times you look at it, I start to commit these things to memory a bit. I'm a bit like that. I'm very kind of visual in how I remember things. Like if I meet someone, I can meet a group of people and I'll forget all their names 2 minutes later, which is terrible. And I used to be really good at it, but I'm not very good when it comes to talking to people and remember everything. But visually, you show me something once or twice and that's it, I remember it. Okay, so, and that's how I'm remembering these. I don't remember the sentence. I just remember visually what it looks like on the page. Just a strange way for your brain to work. Okay, so validators required. I've added a required field in there. Now, that isn't going to do a great deal at the moment because we're not actually checking for anything. So what we could do is we could say that we want this add button to be disabled, let's say, when the form is invalid. So we can add...
I like that.
Yeah, we can add a disabled attribute.
That's really good user experience, I think.
So we can add a disabled attribute, and inside here, because we're using the square brackets now, we can check against something. So what we can say is we can say this, well, not this, we don't need the word this in here. We can just say add form, and then there are a few things built in. You've got things like pristine and so forth. It's invalid is what we want to hook into. So we can say it's disabled if the add form is invalid. And as I think I hit save on everything. This is where the add button. Let's just add material onto this. So
yeah, we need to add some material, definitely.
Button, because Matt button, I think, has a disabled state to it. If I've written this all correctly. Oh, it's still going.
Let me open up the console. I don't think there's any errors. Do you want me to check docs?
No, I'm just trying to think. No, we don't put brackets on it.
If anyone watching knows the answer,
saved, doesn't it?
Put it in the chat.
Is everything saved on your end?
I think so.
You just check all the files, yeah.
Yeah, they look saved.
And if you click the button again, it's still
clickable.
Okay. So what's going on there? There's something not right. Add form.
We'll just put that to true, right? Let's just see if it does go disabled.
Well, I was just thinking, what about? Okay, go on then.
Okay, it does.
Disabled state, yeah. Okay.
So it does go disabled. So the button is being disabled correctly. Invalid.
It's not still dollar. It's not dollar invalid anymore.
You sure it's not a function?
It shouldn't be a function.
Let me check. You try and remember, and I will check. So I'm going to go to the docs. I'll explain what I'm doing. Forms in the docs, and then on the right-hand side, it's not big enough, so I would make it bigger, but then I'll cover Andrew's work.
Can you have a quick look now and just see what happens quickly? So I've just added a add form pristine tag as well.
Yeah, it works.
Which is what we normally do. Yeah. So normally we look for is it pristine, and if you start typing it, I'll tell you why. Because I put a default value of Eddie in there, it wasn't working. That's why.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I'll take the pristine out. I will take out the default value of Eddie, and we'll just change that to say undefined, which is what you should put in there if you don't want a default value. And now, if I save that, yeah, the add button's disabled. Cool.
Okay, so
there we go. Silly little error there.
Eddie 2. Oh, why does it go blank when I add it? It does get added.
The search form is empty. It's because the search form was empty, perhaps. Although it was working a minute ago. Is that because you had typed things first before?
Yes, it was.
Because you had typed things in before. So there's probably some additional code we need to add on that perform search function. to check that something is actually going on before it uses it. Let's not worry about that right now. What I was going to do first was actually say, so because you've put something in there and you've added it, the previous value is still showing. So you could keep hitting add effectively and keep adding the same thing. What if we wanted to clear that value after we've added someone?
That sounds
so
more
what
useful.
We can do
sounds good.
Is in the TypeScript, what we can also do is say this dot add form and then dot reset. Okay.
Nice.
So we've got the add. It's going to first of all add that name. It's then going to run the search and it's going to reset the form. So if I save that, let's see what happens now if you try and add one.
So add is disabled. I put a name in ed2, hit add. It did reset.
The search is still disappearing because we haven't fixed that yet.
Yeah, that's fine. If I type in Eddie, it will appear. So ed2 is there, as you can see. So if I do ed3 and hit add, there we go. And I can then filter by ed or Eddie, and it works. We're getting no chats in the chat. We're getting no messages in the chat. I think everyone's completed this already. They're probably way ahead of us. They've probably built so much more than what we've done. They probably put a contact form on, which they've probably added sending emails. On that note, I think the next thing we should probably look at is if we go to material, and if we look at the forms, maybe make the form look a bit nicer, like this. What do you think?
Yeah. What else could we put on there? We want to make it look more like those inputs. Okay. Yeah.
Someone's asking, could we commit the current state of the project? Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
And then we'll do some design next. I know you want it to look pretty. So this is, what was the last one? Last one was add, wasn't it? I did add.
Yeah, so this is now validation.
Yeah, validation, that's what it was. Thank you. Form validation.
Well, I'll let you drive. You can add some styling to our form inputs.
Okay. That's all pushed up. Done. Okay, so let's make this look, so the button's working, but the forms aren't. So if we go back to their docs, you want the label up here like they've done theirs. And I think we've got it added, right? We've already got the module, I think, added. So this bit has already been added.
I don't think we've added. Have we added that? I don't remember adding that.
I can check. Let's have a look. App module. Did we not add input? No, we did not. So my mistake. So if I grab that and add mat input and put it after B, just to be alphabetical, doesn't really matter. And then down here, we add it again. With a comma, don't forget that comma. Hit save, close that file now. And what we can do if we look at in the overview, or even they got some examples. This is how they lay theirs out. So we've got the form already, don't have to worry about that. We've got the form field, they've got the label, and then they've got the input. So if I grab one of those and go to our home component, and we can replace this part up here. So I'll do it below just so I can see. So we don't need this class because we're not doing anything with it. So here would be name. And then we don't want a placeholder. But value, we don't want a value either. Actually, we can have a placeholder, I think. Oops, what did I do? It's just the value we definitely don't want. But then if you've got a placeholder name, I don't know, you could say, yeah, example Eddie. And then if I hit save, is that going to work, Andrew? What do you think? If I hit save.
Form field, that label, that input.
It did. Let me delete the old one. We don't need that anymore. Do I need any... oh, I need some IDs on it, don't I? Otherwise it's not going to work. I need the form control. So if I grab these out. There we go. And I should probably put a 4 on the label as well. To be correct, let's say. And then I can get rid of the old form fields. Hit save. And now we've got this one. Okay, the search one isn't done yet, but this one is done if you look. As I click on it, get the placeholder. So I can type example Eddie, not Eddie. And you still get the add. And if does the add work, Eddie, not Eddie appears. So that works. Okay. We got the button working, so that's good. Let's do the search next. So, again, what we can do is we go to the docs, grab the form field. There are loads of examples if you want stuff different. I mean, with an X, so you can clear it. It's quite nice. That's really nice, actually. There's loads. Oh, there's even ones. Do you see that one down there? 3 columns.
Or the new styles for things. Yeah, there's lots of things they've been adding to inputs recently.
Loads of stuff. Okay, we'll keep it simple. We'll just grab this one. We'll go for the simplest one, and you can make yours a lot more complicated. So I'm going to put it below, and I'm going to take what I need out. So again, for the 4, I'm going to copy that in, and then I'll put it into the label. And this is going to be search. And then I'm going to use these properties as well, and then get rid of the old form field and put it here. And then we don't want a value for this. We don't want a default value. The user's going to type it. Placeholder could be example, I don't know, code mortals. And if I hit save, it reloads. Now we've got name, and you've got add, and then you've got search. Example, code mortals. So type code mortals, it works. Let's add code mortals part 2. Add, you can see it's already there. And if I filter it, you got the original one and you got the part 2. Look at that. Cooking on gas. What else would you like to see? Or
I was going to say, what else could we do with forms? What would be good?
I'm interested to see who's still watching and who's still awake, and see what they would like to see and how their projects are getting along. And if anyone wants to jump on the stream as well, we can send you a hangout and include your code on the stream if you want us to have a look at anything. Or you can send us an invite on VS Code. And maybe everyone's just quite tired getting into the week on the Monday. And we can always have a stream later in the week to see how everyone's getting on. But you've got to share your code. You've got to share your projects. Open source link to GitHub repo, or invite us on VS Code, join us on a Hangout. We are open to suggestions. And if there are other alternatives in addition to that 3, then let us know.
How about we update the contact page? We could put a form on there with a few more fields, get a text input, perhaps put a radio button or a drop down on there, just get a slightly more complicated field to repeat what we've already done, but add a few more entries on there.
Okay, let's do that, and then I think it'll be time. That'll be the last thing we do, and then we will call it a day. We've been streaming for how long now? Over 2 hours, just gone 2 hours. So okay, I will let Andrew drive.
So again, we have an empty. Oh, go on.
All yours.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we have an empty component again, nothing in there. So imagine I've just created a brand new component. In this case is our contact page, and we want to put a form on there. So first thing we do is create a form variable. So we'll just call it contact form. Again, this is going to be of type form group. That allows us to create a collection of form items. We need in our constructor access to the form builder. So private forms is normally what I call this one, form builder. And then we're going to need to import both form group and form builder as dependencies for this component. So import form builder and form group from @Angular forms. In the init, we then want to create a few fields. So what would be good fields for a contact form? What kind of things would you like to capture? So we'll say this contact
Name.
form.
What else have we got? Anyone watching? Name,
This forms dot
email.
group. Yeah, so throw some at me. Name,
Yeah, email,
Email.
phone number.
a message of some sort. Yeah, a phone number.
Yeah,
So
message would be
phone, I'll
good.
just call it. The actual what they want to say, so we'll call it a message. What else? What about a reason, perhaps? The reason they want to contact us. This might be a drop down or a radio button, perhaps. Let's start with those, shall we? We can always add some more.
I think that's good.
Okay, so we've now got a few more fields there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields. Message will be a text area. For the moment, I'll create just normal inputs, then we can perhaps convert the reason into either a radio or a drop down. So inside the contact HTML, we can remove this. I'll change it to an H1 at this front saying, send us a message.
Oh, you're outside the H1.
Where you autocomplete that does that.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't have these plugins on mine, but because I'm using your IDE, I guess your IDE is automatically adding them as I do stuff.
Yeah.
It's like a fun game to play. Okay, so we were using material fields, right? So we just remind ourselves in the home component, we start with a map form field, we have a label, and we have an input onto that. So let's do the same in here. We'll have a map form field. Oh, outside it again. We'll have a mat label. Inside there, this was name was the first one. We have an input, and that's going to be a mat input. Okay. Now we need to tell the form which group we're using. So this is a form group, and it was the contact form. And then the form control here is name. You put the fors in and everything for this, did you, before? So let's do that.
I did, yeah, just to follow your initial example.
Perfect. The for name and then ID of name. Again, we should probably say what the type is. It's just text. And then if I duplicate that, so copy and paste, we can do that a couple of times over. We're going to put lots of fields on here, right? We had name, we had email. So I'll change all these. This is where you could probably even create a loop, right? And just loop through.
I was thinking the
each of
exact
these.
same thing. You could, but let's just keep it simple for now.
Phone. We could have this to be of type phone here. That exists as a type.
It does.
That will help for those on mobile devices to get the right keyboard up.
That is true.
We had a reason, so just put reason in as a normal text field for the moment. I've got one too many here. We only had one more. Now, a text area, I believe it is still a text area on material, isn't it?
I will check. I think so.
And we don't need to put types in because text area can only be one type. And this was our message.
Input.
Yeah, text and text. Yeah. Cool. So if I save this, we should see form with 4 fields, well, 5 fields, one being a text area.
Awesome.
They are at the moment all just wrapping next to each other. We could put something to style that out a bit. I tried to do some styling yesterday. Grid didn't want to behave. But
No, just put some margin on it or some padding, just to give it a bit of spacing. I think it's fine. Because then as you go bigger, it go like that.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. We haven't got a lot of time on the clock. Yeah, something like that. So that's fine, I think. If you make it bigger, it looks good.
Yeah. And we can still, on the text area, I think we can say how many rows we want. So we can say rows 8 in there, make it a bit bigger by default. Okay. And obviously we need a button on there to submit with. So we'll say button, type submit, send message. Again, up here we need to declare what's going to happen when we submit. So we add with the action, the event round brackets to say on a submit, call the send message function, which we don't have right now. So we'll just add the send message function into the TypeScript. Public send message. And we'll just do a console log for now because we will tie this up to a backend next week. So this contact form. And there is something called get raw value, I believe, as well that we can use. So this is good if you had perhaps a disabled field on here that you didn't want someone to change. Get raw value will still get you disabled fields and so forth. So I'll just use that to get the full value back. Oh, we haven't styled up that button, have we? I left that as a default button. Let's do that matte.
That's true.
Let's call it a raised button. I'm just going to put a div around that as well because I made everything to be full width. Oh, nice. Behaving on me because it closed the tag up here.
Oh, yeah.
Because I made everything underneath form be full width, it's making the button go full width as well. We don't really want it to be full width. Oh, give it a color as well.
Nice, look at that. See, very easy and quickly with material design, you can use that component and have a really nice looking form. Have a nice looking web page layout, toolbars, menus sliding in, modals, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I could go into this app component here with this router outlet. I could put a little div around this, perhaps.
I'm going to put it in a card.
At the moment, everything's right on the side, isn't it? So we can say let's have a div. I'll just call this class. Let's call it a wrapper. Could be content wrapper or something. And then inside the app component SCSS, we can say dot wrapper. We just want to give a bit of margin around the whole thing. So let's just say margin 2em. So our default is probably 12 pixels or so. Just brings us a bit of padding around. Otherwise, it's right onto the edges, wasn't it? That's instantly a little bit prettier. And every page will get that. If you go to the home page, you see the home page as well now has that same bit of padding around it.
Yeah, let's have a look. So all the pages have that. Nice.
And as it says, we could add a card as well. So
because it's
if I go into that wrapper,
around the router, this is where the pages load in here. So
yeah, we could also add Mac card. I'm putting it between the wrapper div because we still want that margin all around it, but around the router. So as he says, that content that's going to get displayed, we still want it in there. Now Mac card we haven't yet imported. So in the app module, I need to add another import for Mac card quickly.
While you're doing that,
but this just shows you how quickly really you can start adding stuff. Okay, here's the card. I'll just hit save, and we should be able to see. I don't know if everything's saved. Just save all.
It did save. It all nudged in slightly. Oh, there we go. You've got a card. So if I go to the home, it's also got a card. I go to the contact, it's got a card, and everything just stays there the same as I search.
I'll admit I can't see the card very well on your screen. Maybe if I just put a background on everything. So I'm just going to set the whole page to have a little bit of color to it. So HTML body. Let's just give it a background color.
On the screen share, it never comes through because it's quite a faint grey box. It's really nice, but you're right.
I'll just do a slightly lighter color around it. That worked.
That might be a bit too light.
Let's go a bit darker again.
Even I don't see that color.
Let's see, where are we? So if I attach it into the wrapper, that should... You edit it?
I haven't touched anything.
Yeah. If I put it in the wrapper instead, this will keep the margin on the page though. I can change the margin to be padding instead.
Aha, now I can see it. Yeah, that's working now. I can see that grey.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone else can see that too.
So you can see the card there in the white is sat in there.
Well, you don't
I
need
think
to do
cards
that.
also support other. You can have some other tags in here, can't you, for cards? I don't know if you've got the docs there. I think you set like a matte elevation, is it, or something you put on there to give it the drop shadow.
It has got a drop shadow, but yeah, you probably can't see it.
You can't see it. Okay.
I can see it.
I think there is a matte elevation or something you can set to.
I don't see an elevation, but there is somewhere you can do that. I don't remember. I have seen that before. Do you want to answer some of one of the questions in the chat? How would you recommend to handle content versus presentation? Asked by Code Alive. So the great thing with, hopefully I'm going to answer this correctly, Code Alive. Hopefully I've understood the question. But the great thing about Angular, each time we create a component or a page, we get a HTML file, you get an SCSS file, or CSS file if you've just decided to use CSS, which is fine, and a TS file. And what we do is in the HTML, we put the content, if it's static, or we put some things like we've put in the home component. We had the names because that's content, but it's not, but it's more data which will get generated into the content onto the HTML that we've done with a for loop. And then the styling goes in the SCSS. Okay, the home has none, but the content does. And if I go up a level and go to the app component, which is the component wrapping those pages, then you can see we've got a presentation. So definitely worth having them separated out. Hopefully that answers your question, Code Alive. And our app is looking good. Looks very much like an Ionic app. The way I've got it squished to the side and you've got this.
It's very simple still right now. Obviously, you can spend a lot more time tidying up design on it. And as you're saying, I mean, you split things out, right? You sort of work top down. So you've got the outer wrapper, this app component, where we've put kind of everything we want available everywhere, with the nav, the toolbar, the router outlet, and then we can sort of drill down into each component and start building up the little blocks we want to build a site with. Think of things as building blocks, components, similar to how you might perhaps build something with React if you have done stuff with React. I know they're very much one of the first things that they focus on is components too. Just keep things encapsulated too. Don't break the encapsulation rules unless you really have to.
Awesome. So I think if we've got no more questions in the chat, I think we've been going for, let me see, almost come up to 2.5 hours. I think it's time to let people rest, let people get on with their homework and their coding. So what is everyone's homework for next time, Andrew? So today they've built forms. Maybe, let me think, what can they do for their homework?
Well, obviously, we've got the contact form here. We're going to do a bit more work on it next week. You can obviously have a go at, we didn't do it, converting the reason field to a select field.
I like that idea.
There should be some information on the materials website on how you can create a select input. Here we go. He's just bringing up the docs on there. So you can follow through their docs and create a couple of selected options that you can choose from. Add a bit of validation onto that form. At the moment, there's no validation there. Have a look at Angular's documentation. There are other validation rules that we haven't touched on that allow you to check how long an entry is. There's the length of it. Perhaps even show the errors on the page. Again, from materials documentation, it will tell you how you can show errors against fields as well. I think there's probably a couple of things to do with forms there. So showing errors, have a go at putting in a select or a radio choice, perhaps for the reason field. And then, different types of validation. Try some of the different validations out. Look at Angular's documentation to do with validation. Anything else that might be worth playing with? I think that those three things are reasonably interesting.
I think they're really good. I've put them in the chat. Form validation, show errors, and select dropdown. You can do it in any order that you like. You don't have to put it in the order that I've put in. And any questions, write on the Slack channel. Let us know what your questions are. I really want to see some links to open source GitHub projects of seeing what you're working on. And let me push this up for everybody so they can see and I can reshare the Git project. So on this one, you did the contact page, right? So contact form. Hit save. I push that up again. and I'll share the project. This is going under part 3. I'll share that in the chat. Well, I hope today was useful. Let us know what else you would like to see. We've got a plan for next week. We're going to want to do services and observables, where you saw .subscribe, so we can keep data kind of alive and changing. But if there's anything else you'd like to see, I know we had a comment about automated testing, and we have done some videos and live streams on Cypress and Cucumber. So we have got some videos out on there, so do check out our other videos on the YouTube channel. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and I think you should call it a like, and subscribe. It supports the channel, it's free, and hopefully we've helped you today, and we look forward to hearing how your work goes on. Anything else you'd like to add, Andrew? Let me transition in our bigger screen, where we've got your friend in the background.
I understand our next session next week will be same format. We're going to be remote, are we? Is that the intention?
I think that's the idea. We're going to be remote. So let us know any suggestions on the way the remote has worked. Have we spoken too much? Did you want more time, I guess, to do more of your own work? And just give us any feedback. When we end the stream, the comment section will be open under the video, or just ping a message in the Slack if you're in the Slack. And yeah, let us know what you thought and how we can help. And we're getting some feedback in the comments now, so thank you very much for that. But yeah, just keep anything positive, constructive criticism, just let us know. It would be really good to get that feedback so we can improve it for next time.
Are we going to do anything between now and next Monday as well that might be of interest with people?
You know us, we might do a live stream. Maybe us working on the Code Mortals website. We're using Angular and Firebase for that. So Firebase is a real-time database. Has a lot more of things there now, like machine learning, hosting, cloud functions to do server-side functions, literally.
Yeah, I think we should perhaps do that Friday. I think if people are working from home a bit more and so forth, maybe we could spend Friday afternoon on here, do a few hours on the Code Mortals website.
That would be good. Yeah, what time would be work for people? I'd be interested to know what time would people see. Maybe we do something a bit earlier on, a bit not so late. People won't be travelling home from work. They'll be working from home already. So we'll give that a go. Keep an eye on our socials. Follow us on Twitter. Let me share a link, and we'll keep you posted. And we'll get GDG Cloud also involved as well, so they can share things with you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you everyone, and we will look forward to seeing you